morning, everyone. Oh, let's try that again.
Good morning.
There we go. I'm super excited to have some of the favorite people in our district partners on the stage today to have a great conversation. I want to first by acknowledging the Cajon Valley School Governing Board. Would you please stand and be recognized? David? $1.5 trillion in student loans. Talk about a barrier that might present for opportunity youth, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, David, and great to be here. And I'm so amazed because Andre Agassi is on stage right now. Maybe I should
I should leave right now.
It's a great testament to Ed's backhand. He's great talent. Ed actually hired me 7 years ago. So I literally wouldn't be here. He was on our workforce board at the time, and so I'm always appreciative of that. But just working with Ed as a real visionary and helping us transform what we do. So at the Workforce Partnership, we, like workforce development entities across the country, serve adult and dislocated workers primarily, and then youth with some of the federal money. So we work with federal money, fund the Career Center Network, who reach those folks who've been dislocated and need to be upskilled in order to get into the workforce. But we've changed our work dramatically in the time that we've been working together in order to really expand beyond the boundaries of the boundaries literally of the federal dollars, because it's very restrictive. It can only do so much. But we've expanded to work with city dollars, county, private sector, and philanthropy. And to address the opportunity youth crisis, we've really dove in on this dramatically in the past few years. Put out a report coming up on our third annual conference, May 2nd, at the Town and Country, where we work throughout the day to raise awareness of this crisis. The issue, as you may well know, is 16 to 24-year-olds not working and not in school. The number in San Diego County alone is 41,000. So think of Petco Park filled with youth who are not yet finding their place in the world and struggling with that transition from youth to adulthood. We have to get ahead of that. We have to change that. Nationally, 5 million. It's a quiet crisis. Many people are just simply not aware of that. And if we don't address that now, then the future of many of those is very bleak, and we just have to get ahead of it, and we can. And that's why I like the term opportunity youth far better than disconnected, because it's our opportunity too to change this narrative. And so May 2nd, join us if you can, Town and Country. But to address the student loan crisis with opportunity youth, we've also started up a new endeavor with income share agreements. We're the first workforce entity of 550 in the country to create an income share pool, which income share agreements are where we have the philanthropic funds to fund the cost for the higher ed work, the certificate work with our partner UCSD Extension as step one, pay for their coursework. Their payback is based upon their future income. So a lot of skin in the game. It's not just the student debt that the student and the family have to incur, but we're in the game, UCSD Extension, and then we all win the better they do. So more to come on that. It's very early days. We've raised $3.5 million. We're going to have a 100-person cohort in the first go-round, all in IT. Expand beyond that in the future. But this is to target underserved, underrepresented populations without the means to be able to acquire what it takes to get into great careers. So more to come on that, but that's part of what we're doing to address that crisis.
And those ISAs are key, because we need to make sure that the talent is moving into those roles that have the strengths, interests, and values to go into those roles and have had the exposure. So I'm thinking specifically of Shabree's work and Chris's work, and providing the exposure and then ensuring that we have students who understand who they are and who they want to become, so that it becomes a good investment. I mean, it's always a good investment, obviously, investing in students, but it isn't if we're sending them into a career path that isn't going to align to who they are and who they want to become.
Right.
That's a waste of money and a waste of their time. So maybe Shabri can share a little bit about the way that you're just making it possible for students to gain exposure to the world of work.
No, absolutely. So 6 years back, I was involved in a lot of these conversations across the country, specifically in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I was part of these day-long conversations with post-secondary, K12 employers, district leaders, everybody in a room like this at a table having day-long conversations about what we need to do to bridge this gap. And what I noticed at the end of the day is these conversations are great. It was happening across the country, But what was lacking was at the end of the day, everybody went home and there was no clear plan for how we were going to engage employers and everyone with students in order to bring that career exposure. So that's when, it was kind of a spark for me saying, technology has to play a better role in sort of leveling the playing field. You have kids in rural school districts, kids in areas where they don't really see role models within their communities. And students cannot aspire for something that they don't know exists. So the answer to everything is the first step is exposure. We need to show them what's possible, and that's easily said than done. You can be surrounded by employers around your school district in an urban area, but the average teacher in the classroom still does not know how to reach out to that employer and bring them into the classroom. So this is where, the idea for NEPRIS came 6 years back. Is said, I had this unique perspective of coming from the corporate side, working in education technology, understanding the school district needs to some extent, and we said, technology has to be in the middle of this, bringing all these amazing players together to really have a scalable solution, right? We can reach 10 students, but our goal is to reach thousands or millions of students, and we can't do that without the support of technology, and that's what we do at NEPRIS.
And in 14 months, 46,000 student views of live industry chats through the Cajon Valley School District. We couldn't put all those students on a school bus to go out and see places of work. Mm-hmm. It's true equity. Like, we can get into every nook and cranny of the district and have every child see a pro, zoologist, attorney, whatever.
Yeah, a graphic designer from Pakistan. We had the Bureau of Engraving and Printing from Washington, D.C. Doing a session on what's the chemistry behind printing money, and this was two Hispanic, there was a Hispanic woman scientist working for the federal government printing money. You kind of opened the world to all these students, possibilities, right? So,
Ed, could I do a follow-on to that? One of the things that you were talking about, and I think is so important, is to be able to connect with students where they are. Mm-hmm. And I hope we can show that video. Yeah. Because our approach is to go to kids directly, to work with school systems, to work with partners. Mm-hmm. But what we found is going to students directly, we use YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, but so many of the things you said resonated. Having young people to be able to see someone like them who is experiencing the same kind of thing they are experiencing at the same time, or being able to follow someone who's in a career that they're not quite sure, is pretty amazing. We started this process. We have a video experience on our website where there are a number of experiences students can actually partake in. We launched it at the end of September. We have had 10 million views. Wow. So that means that, and this is right within the age group of 12 to 18, but obviously this is resonating, and young people are looking for the things that you were talking about. Right. So if we can build on that as a group, as a team, then I think we could really have the kind of impact we're all looking for.
Thank you for the segue, Jean. I've been told that the video is ready.
Before this.
Okay, here we go.
I'm 14 years old, and I want to be a fashion designer when I get older.
I wanted to either design cars or do something with cars.
I would want to be known for social justice.
I want to be a pro gamer when I grow up.
I want to be a celebrity makeup artist.
YouTube, Netflix, cooking, and dancing.
Be a comedy writer. Why I want to do this is because I love to write. So, what do you think?
I started this company when I was 13 by selling banana bread just on the street.
He came to me one day and goes, okay, I want to start a business. I was like, oh.
I never told you I really want to be a lawyer.
If you want to be a lawyer, take classes in college that teach you how to think analytically.
In America, I'm Indian. But when I'm in India, I'm American.
I decided to take a giant leap of faith and fly to India. I was totally ready to audition for this part.
It's okay to create your own path. Even though it might be hard, you'll get somewhere if you really love the things that you do.
Hope will get you very far. I've learned that, because if you have hope, then that'll kind of give you a push to do what you need to do.
Chubby, you talked about NEPRIS's role and helps us to have role models for our kids. Lisa, you talk a lot about role models and a lack of exposure. And how do we redesign the learning experience so that we can fill that void?
If you think about how you grew up as a child, the context in which you grow up is everything. From your family members to who you see at school to what's happening around you. And so we know from research, Rod Chubby and others' work, that the rate of innovation in America is down since the 1970s. A huge reason behind that is innovation happens in specific geographic locations around the country, and this is tied to career opportunities, job opportunities, formation of your self-identity and what you'll go on to be. And so Chubby refers to people who don't grow up in these areas or wealthy families as the lost Einsteins, and believes that we could actually quadruple the rate of innovation, create more jobs, create more opportunity by reaching out to these lost Einsteins. Well, how do we do it? How do we create that context when you don't grow up in that space? And so the access to Meet a Pro, where if I don't even think I might be an engineer because I'm a woman and because I don't know people like that, but I might be able to meet someone like that on the NEPRIS technology, can have a huge influence on how people develop their thoughts about who they might become. So, and I love this research because it's looking so early. These kids are forming their identities so very early. And we're finding out already in our year one data collection, I love this statistic, that 76% of middle school students already have at least one hoped for possible occupational self. At least one that they can articulate. It's a very clear career. Not just I'd like to work in medicine, but I'd like to be a doctor or a nurse's assistant or whatever the career is. Really fascinating on the other side is we're also asking them, what is your greatest feared for possible self? And we're at a point where about 50% of the students can articulate something they don't want to become. And so we're just tracking that data. How do students' thoughts about who they're going to become, their identity, that formation of identity, helping them pull out their strengths, their interest, exploring careers that align to those strengths and interests, that there's a range of careers, that I can meet many people that look like me, and we know that it does make impact from the research. So, David, I forgot what your original question was. But I'm super excited about this work because, and I'm really proud of Cajon Valley for taking the leap to work with a research institute. The survey that we conducted last year, our baseline data, we surveyed over 3,000 students, over 200 teachers, was the largest survey ever done of its kind of middle school students related to career and college readiness. And so understanding that early formation of career identity and how that leads into opportunities post-high school is just really critical. I have two kids that have graduated from high school and floundered. I had a son who graduated from college and floundered. This is personal for me. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And possible future selves. Chris, most people know the MBTI when they think Myers-Briggs, but tell us about the innovation labs and the work that you're doing to help elevate this work?
Okay, one of the things I wanted to comment on is the thread of going younger. If you think about the Myers-Briggs company, our traditional business in education has been with the Career Center at four-year institutions or community colleges. So you think about a student that goes, they get into a major, and all of a sudden they realize after now 6 years, hey, I need to find a job, right? So what was the purpose before that? So to give you some history about the Myers-Briggs company, we were founded in 1956 as Consultant Psychologist Press, very creative name. But we were founded with what's called the California Psychological Inventory, which even to this day is considered sort of a masterpiece in terms of personality assessment because of its predictive capacity and also its descriptive capacity around behavior and personality. So you can describe what somebody's going to do, benchmark that against performance, and then help that person develop. Since then, we've acquired the Myers-Briggs Assessment, the Strong Interest Inventory, and a variety of other assessments used pretty universally in the corporate world as well as education. What we did about 4 years ago is we realized, again, we saw this Career Center problem where we weren't really helping students when they needed to be helped, when they were at an age where they could actually make decisions around what their pathways would be after they've already made decisions that may not be right for them. So we wanted to provide universal access to our assessments through the innovation labs. And what we've done is we've built a platform that we call Vita Navis. It happened to be a URL that was available, but it also means ship of life. And that's what we really see ourselves as, helping students navigate the complexities of life through self-awareness and insight and the data that we derive from assessments and other site interaction that they do. So what we've done is we've sort of flipped the model of traditional assessment from being a one-on-one experience with an excellent practitioner like Ed Hidalgo talking to a single student. Well, that's not scalable. So what we've done is we've created modules around interests and then personality. And we start with interest because it's much more fundamental to personality. It's one of those things that gets sort of solidified early. So it's something we can influence early. But the whole idea is to make these self-administrable, self-interpretable, and then scalable, right? And we also think that we've seen a lot of organizations, whether they're districts or higher ed institutions, look at the aggregate data and better support their students, better find pathways for them. So we're really focused on universal access to assessments and then having organizations use that data to better support their end goals and their students and their employees in the long run.
Patrick, you have a question?
So in each of your roles, I know that you talked about some of the measurements. What are ways that you guys measure impact and how you're making a difference in the lives of students and the lives of disconnected youth?
So I can answer that fairly quickly. One of the things that we look at is student retention. We recently conducted a study in conjunction with the U.S. Department of Education. 19,000 students over 2 years with 38 minority-serving institutions. Those were historically black colleges and universities, Hispanic-serving institutions, primarily black institutions. So there are two cohorts, and both of those cohorts, 30% increases in retention. If they were involved in taking the super strong assessment, which aligns the students' interests with the world of work and their studies, we saw a much higher level of engagement. We've also done different ROI surveys, so we do that through our platform as well. And we can talk about specific use cases or examples.
So we have a partnership with a school system in the central Massachusetts where we support an Explore class. And all 7th and 8th graders take the Explore class, and they have a variety of things that they are exploring in a 9-week program. So we did pre and post testing. We have the first 3 quarters now of data that's coming forward. What was really interesting, in fact, I was in Philadelphia last weekend presenting with the superintendent of schools at the NSBA conference. And what we found was that pre and post test, you could see that there was an impact on students who could see that there were things that they really liked about these things that they were doing and wanted to take the next step and take the next course. But what I really loved about it was 26% of the kids who were in those classes said, never again. Don't want any part of it. Glad I had an opportunity to do it, but I absolutely don't want to do this anymore. So we feel as though building on that in other school systems, and ideally as we work more closely out in San Diego, we are going to get that kind of rich response.
So for us, this was a tough question to answer because when you're trying to build a technology solution that's not really curriculum, like most school districts are used to content and curriculum implementations where you can clearly say, okay, this is a math curriculum. Because of doing this for 6 months, now their math scores have increased, you know. Unfortunately, when we're doing work like this, it's not like a direct impact measurement like that, so we have to really think about and get creative. So we worked closely with the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation's impact team to say, how do we measure something when we can't, it's not an absolute measurement, you know? So we do short surveys right after every live conversation with an industry professional. We measure 3 things. One is, you know, relevance, exposure, and engagement. So it's a very simple question. It's a 3-question survey. Did you learn something about a career that you did not know existed before? Were you more interested in the lesson because of this industry engagement? And what was the third one was, so relevance, that was whether they understood the topic better, and then whether they learned something about a new career. So very simple 3-question survey, and we have now over 10,000 student data points. Now we can actually come to some sort of understanding of whether this is working. So
the ultimate question about impact is, does this work?
Mm-hmm.
Do more kids graduate and know a career, know their strengths and self? Do they go into a career, go into college? That would be the ultimate measure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's longitudinal research and longitudinal work. And the district, we're in partnership longitudinally to study the changes from year to year to year, so we actually can determine that beauty of the real impact long term.
So I shared the 41,000. There's your measurement. That's got to go down.
Exactly.
We have to eliminate it. No youth should be disconnected. There's a place in the world for everyone, as Ed famously says. We have to bring that down. So we have a benchmark already, and we're working hard at it locally through our work, our partnerships with the community groups and the school systems and more. So we got to drive that number down dramatically, and hopefully we can lead the way with the country, because it's not San Diego alone. 5 million, that is a tragedy. And if we don't bring that down, we have to hold ourselves accountable. Fortunately, we have good data to know exactly what this looks like around the region by zip code and so forth. So there's our benchmark. The other thing that we're doing, among other initiatives, is we started our own youth employment internship program. We call it Connect to Careers, back in 2013. In year 1, we had 500 applicants. Last year we had 15,000. So there's another measurement, but that's got to go much bigger. There's 41,000 disconnected opportunity youth. That number's got to double and triple. So we're holding ourselves accountable. Jobs cure a lot of issues. Internships help everyone on their way. We all went through that, and if you don't have that opportunity in your life path, you are delayed in so many ways that affects future income and future opportunities. So more internships, more jobs, and drive down that number dramatically.
Peter?
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you a question. Can you talk to the converse side, which I've heard you talk about before, which is all the unfilled positions? I just think it's fascinating how many unemployed there are in San Diego alone, 16 to 24, yet how many unfilled jobs are there currently?
That's a great question, and a tough one too, because we need more and more employers to step up and to be able to bring on internships at that entry level point, so that they can find their way and go through their career path. But it's really hard on employers at the same time. I really empathize with them, because they're having to put out their own funds in order to hire a person, oftentimes with little or no skills. And it takes a lot of empathy on the part of the employment community to really step up and do that. We've been able to build more momentum through the city and the county being on board, not just leaving it to the private sector, and that just needs to grow. But to the issue of all of the skills gap is clear locally and nationally, but it doesn't just happen, as we know, magically. It's because of an awareness gap, and then an opportunity gap, and all these other gaps then lead to this chasm that we're experiencing now. So again, why we have to go early, why we have to change our work so that we're working with K-12, which we really weren't doing before. And one other thing I just want to highlight as another simple but profound innovation was a discussion I had with Ed back at Think a Bit a number of years ago, because we put out our research on where the jobs are, the sectors, the career pathways, but we weren't sharing it broadly enough. It was going to professionals, you'd look at this cool report and you'd put it on the shelf and move on, but that's not the customer, it's the educators and the parents and the kids. And so in that conversation we had, Ed came up with this idea, how do we get this in front of kids? And so that simple question then led to the creation of our priority sector poster boards, which then we put up, and then everybody wanted them. We went from being able to put out our 5 boards, and then we built an essential skills board, and suddenly it just took off like a firestorm, and we have over 5,000 of these boards in schools all over the county that then the educators have turned into curriculum, and then you have it in front of eyeballs every single day, and then you can use that as a tool to open up eyes to these sectors they otherwise would never even know exist. So simple ideas and questions and driving for how do you do it better leads to innovations just every single day.
And I was just going to say one thing about what Chubby said, which really resonated with me, was that it's hard to isolate a technology and say, hey, this technology is having this direct effect on this metric. Right. I see both of our companies as sort of scaling human connectedness and helping support cultural change within the organizations that we work with. We saw that especially with the minority serving institutions study, was that the high performers there made huge changes within their systems, right? We helped scale that human connectedness and helped people talk to people through that medium, whether it's NEPRIS or an assessment that's easily available and accessible to both students and counselors. So it's interesting when you think about metrics, we're not a panacea, it's really that hard work that goes on in the schools that we support.
Can I comment on the technology? Would that be okay? I was so impressed to find out that this entire experience, there's a tech stack that goes with it. So there's a human stack and partners that are worked with, but there's a tech stack, and from Myers-Briggs, Vita Navis to NEPRIS to, I mean, it goes on and on, using Gallup for Strengths Finder to, right? And so think about that as from a school district perspective, partnering with vendors, and I've been on both sides. I've been on a district side, I've been on a vendor side. And the vendors working in relationship and being responsive to the district and the needs and modifying the technology. We just uploaded our survey questions, or we're getting ready to, into one of the platforms. And so there's great opportunity and synergy to work between districts and vendors to evolve the technology through research, right? It's a great win-win for everybody all the way around in the team. And I just wanted to compliment the team on
No, I do. That's a great point, because I mean, as a technology provider working with multiple districts across the country, I do have to say the ones like Cajon, where we see biggest impact is where a lot of other things align, you know, leadership, direction, vision. There's a common culture that's been created within the district where everybody is on board. This is not something you can teach. It's something that, you know, the leadership and everybody else brings to the table. And we always joke about this, and if we can clone you know, what Cajon Valley is doing across the board, we will have lots of successful implementations, but unfortunately that's not that easy to do. So great job.
Thank you for that work, and it really goes to classified and our certificated and our principals, and this work is happening with our teachers who are bravely doing it. None of it would happen without our trustees, everyone in alignment. But just back to that question on data, I was remembering to my old boss at Qualcomm, who would always remind me that n equals 1, that n equals 1. Who's the human that we're impacting today? Today, the person who's really right here is Berlin, and she's a 5th grader from WD Hall who's sitting here. And I couldn't be more proud of her being here today, and that her mom and her grandma brought her today, and the social networks that she's expanding. Schools don't have to own a monopoly on student social networks. I wish I could bring all of the students. I wish we were doing an EPRS chat here today. But I'm just reminding back to n equals 1. What's the impact that we're making on one human every single day? Every single day.
This work started as a career counseling practice for adults. Can you lead the panel in discussion about employee engagement, how that's lacking and what we learned in terms of student engagement?
Where to start? I've learned a lot about that topic because I was really surprised when I was at Qualcomm that high skill, high wage engineers could be upset in their jobs. And that engineers who had gone to places like Berkeley, Stanford, MIT, didn't know how to manage their careers. And then you hear about a class at Stanford that's called Designing Your Life, and it's one of the most popular classes at Stanford. And then you start asking your questions, why are we waiting so long? And then I meet these amazing people who come together, work collaboratively, who also want to do something about that. And so for me, seeing that, and really for me, it strikes me at my core as a very bad student who didn't know there would be a place in the world, who always asked myself, who would ever hire me? I'm so bad at math. Some of you heard those stories. I mean, really bad at math. My 2 children are dyslexic. I know where they get it from, although I've never been diagnosed. I could go on about that, and I won't. They deserve to be engaged at school. They deserve to be engaged at work. They have strengths, interests, and values that are needed in the world. So that's how I kind of select partners. Who really believes in this work and who wants to engage people within your own organizations. You have gone so far with us to help engage our teams. But what does that topic mean to you, as Dr. Miyashiro shared? How do you see us continuing to advance this work of engagement within your organization so that we can ensure that our teams are engaged, the districts that are here today that are thinking about stepping in and doing this work with us? How can we
I think we just
advance
need
this?
to be as passionate as Ed every day. Truly, because in our world, it's so simple to stay within our space of distribute the federal funding, job done. That's not good enough. And we've purposefully stretched every single day to diversify our funding so we can serve more people in more unique and innovative ways. And that will never end. We just have to be really passionate about it, be really empathetic with where people are, because there's a lot of people struggling. Unemployment is very low, but a lot of people are underemployed, still unemployed, and struggling to get back to where they want to be. And so getting in early is crucial, but there's a lot of adult learners who still are on their pathway, and we have to support them in the most effective, innovative ways. And there's many more things ahead we're not even thinking about today that we've got to be willing to say, can we do that, and how do we go about it, versus, no, that's not us, that's somebody else.
I want to just, I don't know if I'm answering the question, but I want to just talk about specific implementation examples that could be best practices that we've seen from this partnership and implementation, which even we hadn't originally thought about. The first thing that Cajon did with the platform was they said, we want to introduce kids to careers within the district. You know, what are people at the print shop doing? School bus drivers. There were so many careers within the district, which is kind of the low-hanging opportunity. Kids can immediately see, okay, I know, you know, I can kind of relate to this. And they did an amazing job of doing so many industry chats that were specifically focused on where the supplies were coming from for the schools, where you look at the school labels, where is it being printed, what kind of jobs do these people have? And it was all very relevant because it's in the district. And the next step they did, which I think is a great best practice, is we bring the world of professionals through the platform, but what is most important is regional economic development, right? What are the jobs that are in your backyard? And there is no better person to really bring in local employers than the workforce board and the school district working together to do that. And now this actually makes a lot of sense for students. They can say, okay, this is a company that I drive by every day and I can go work here, and that's actually now tied to my personality traits. And so you start connecting these dots. Now something that was so far out of reach seems very much within the possibility of doing. So these are some best practices. And one more example that they're in the middle of implementing, which I love, is your low-hanging network is your parents. I know not every district has the luxury of having a parent pool that comes with different careers, but they do. So now they're working on tapping into the parents as professionals and introducing students. And now you really have an engaged community. I mean, I haven't seen a better implementation with our platform. It's gone beyond our imagination of how we would want to use this. So
2 days ago, we had parents watching an Empress chat, thanks to Melanie Brandt, the team. I mean, really, the team is doing incredible work. but we had parents. I don't know, were we translating in that experience? Because I know we were translating Spanish to English, and the parents were coming to our school to watch a live industry chat from the Myers-Briggs company in Sunnyvale, California. It's the first time we had tried with parents. But we know that the strategy must be a 2-gen or a multi-gen strategy. It must include students, parents, and we're including grandparents. But now, I wasn't sure, actually. We were going to ask Chubby, is it okay to put parents on? I thought I was going to get in trouble.
No.
And then I said, because it's not students.
You
So I
never
wasn't
get
sure.
in trouble with me.
I know.
These people
I didn't
are all
want to
witnesses.
And I go,
I'll
I'll just
make
ask
that
for forgiveness
statement.
later. But they loved it. They're like, when can we do this again? Because, our parents don't leave their 5-mile radius, so they don't see what's possible for themselves. How can they see it for their students' future possible selves?
Yeah, no, my kids didn't know what, they know what I do because I'm always on the phone driving them around, right? So, but they didn't know what their dad did until through a Nepris chat, my husband connected with the 2nd grade classroom with my younger one and talked about what it means to be a semiconductor engineer. And it was like, we could have lived in the same house forever and ever, and my son did not know. He just thought my husband went somewhere, came back home in the evening, So.
I just wanted to talk about the real heart of this work, which for me is really about your development as a human being. And so we talk a lot about filling jobs and careers, which is critical, but the theoretical framework underlying all of this is focused on the development of your self-efficacy, what you believe about yourself. So think back when you were little and what you wanted to be. You had heroes that you looked up to. And could I be that person when I grow up? And through understanding our strengths, our interests, getting exposure, having successful experiences, our self-efficacy, we start to feel like, yes, I can do that. I have a hoped for possible self, and it's that affect, it's that energy that I love about this work. So yes, I want my sons to get jobs after high school and college. Absolutely. I want to help people that are unemployed. Most of all, I want to help human beings feel fully fulfilled. And like you can become whatever that thing was you thought you wanted to be when you were 4 or 40. And that's the heart of the work for me.
And that I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, one of the things that we've seen goes back to what Ed was talking about, N=1. I think oftentimes as managers or leaders, we try to impose systems and we want to create pathways for students. But what I've seen is that this really works from the bottom up. Students are empowered, they start to develop agency, they start to take action in the world. And we've seen the same thing with the companies that we work with. When we have self-awareness, we understand who we are, our interests are, we start to make decisions that are informed, intentional, and we start to aspire to that future possible self. And I think that's what gets the teachers going, is that they see that they can actually have this effect again on students, and it gives them agency. So it's really neat to see that journey, that parallel journey.
And I think always emphasizing just the dignity of work in all jobs. All jobs are of value. You don't need to be a coder. You don't need to be that high-end STEM job. Service sector is fantastic in hospitality, and these jobs are not going away. The dignity of who you are and your path in your life and where you want to be, and goes back to that opening keynote around happiness. This is all about happiness and what you've been inspiring, David, in what you're doing, and it's personal too with my 2 daughters. I want them to be happy, fulfilled adults, and whatever they do, and to be proud of what they do.
Thank you. Yesterday at lunch, the Starbucks CEO talked about their partnership with Arizona State University on getting their partners through their college program. And he talked about an anecdote where one of the partners' daughters, 7-year-old, watched her mother working on herself to improve her condition and started to believe that might be her choice when she grew up. And so I want to have you talk about 2-gen strategies. Chris, would you start with why it's important to engage parents and students also?
So what we've observed, and this started actually, Ed and I went to the migrant workers program up it wasn't in Sacramento, but it was in LA, right? It was in LA. And Ed did a strong interest inventory interpretation with a group of honors students, but then we opened up a larger group to all students, all parents, to come and talk about their interests through the Super Strong assessment. And we created a few questions that they could then discuss. And it was just amazing to see the level of engagement. One of the phenomena we've seen is that parents oftentimes, especially in underserved populations that haven't had a lot of exposure to the world of work, they start to foreclose on possibilities for their children because they're not aware of what those are, right? So what we're actually launching with Cajon Valley is a joint product development to develop what we call a career development playbook for parents and students, so that students on our Vita Navis platform and their parents can compare their interests, some personality measures, and then have a deep, meaningful, and even intimate conversation that builds the relationship between parent and child, but also provides that parent with the questions to ask. Oftentimes what we found is that parents don't know what to say. They want the best for their children, but they don't know the actual mechanics of how to get there. So that's what we're working on. We're really excited about it, and we think that two-gen strategy will not only help the students, it'll also help the parents open up their eyes to the possibilities of the world of work.
So just 3 years ago, I thought 2Gen was two Jennifers or something. Quite honestly, I saw nothing about this world, which again is why I'm appreciative of how education has transformed what we do. And so much so that we now have a 2Gen strategy in what we do. We've started a new initiative called CLIMB, the Center for Local Income Mobility. We've received some funding from the San Diego Foundation in order to go much deeper with 2Gen work, and it's a very purposeful, intentional work now with staff behind it. And we're also putting on a session in August with the foundation all around 2Gen in order to uplift that work. So much more to come on that. But this has benefited me, that's benefited our organization, because if we do this right, we get in early and then we change the future.
We're getting close to having our star Berlin on stage, but before we do that, Jean, would you start the dialogue on the bigger problem we're trying to solve? So we talked about the people, but the US economy and our competitiveness globally is at risk with 6.5 million high-skill, high-demand jobs unfilled. And this is work that we're all passionate about. So Peter and Jean, would you mind closing our conversation on that topic?
Yeah, absolutely. Listening to the panel and particularly talking about skills gap as it might relate in California, I would also tell you that in the state of Massachusetts, we have 4 sectors where we have a significant skills gap, particularly in healthcare, IT, and manufacturing are the top 3. And I would also say that the construction industry in Massachusetts is also really struggling, is the word I want to use. And we are working with the Secretary of Labor in Massachusetts and the Workforce Skills Cabinet there, because just to talk about things, the local economy, how you can influence the local economy and be able to keep jobs in Massachusetts and be able to have the economy grow in Massachusetts if you fill the jobs that we can't currently fill. The story that I always talk about is the fact that in Massachusetts right now, we have an incredible shortage of electricians and plumbers and contractors. And you would say, how could that possibly be? But a plumber in Massachusetts right now makes more than a primary care physician. So that is how high demand these jobs are right now. And to go back to some of the things that other panelists have talked about, kids can't know about careers, or they can't even aspire to careers if they don't know what they are, or they don't know how that they exist. And we have to do a better job in being able to expose kids at an early age to say these are all the possibilities, in the hope that not only can we enrich their lives, but we can enrich the community that we live in and enrich the state. And obviously, just scaling this across the country, there are that many jobs where we have a significant skills gap, and if we do what we hope to do, all of us as a team, we can start to influence how we make that number come down appreciably, but also feed the economy and help young people feel as though they too are fulfilled.
Could I just comment on there? We're finding through our year 1 research, this was the most interesting finding to me personally. We're seeing gender differences in how women or girls, middle school age, view their hoped for possible selves and their feared for possible selves when compared to males. And what we're finding is that girls can be more vivid in what they imagine, so they have more things that they hope for, and they also have more things that they fear can happen to them. We don't know why yet, but it's starting to come out in the data. And so I think about this a lot. Even technology companies, 6% of tech companies are founded by women. And we have issues related to gender in the career workspace. And so this ability to see myself in different roles could become really powerful for women that are emerging into the workforce or may have grown up with a mother raising children at home and not had that female role model in the home working. And so where do you get that exposure?
Yeah, it's one thing is seeing people who look like them definitely goes a long way. The other thing we've seen is, you know, if you look at the data, you wonder why there are more women in life sciences careers. It's as opposed to in programming. It's because when you write a line of code, you know, girls want to see how this is actually relevant in life. So presenting it in a different format, saying, okay, if you write a line of code, it helps create a prosthetic leg for someone and helps somebody walk. This connection for girls goes a long way in convincing them to pursue careers in technology. So that's one more aspect to add from that perspective.
I was talking to Berlin earlier, and I have an 11-year-old, and I think the hottest topic is making slime. Are you into that at all, Berlin?
Oh, yeah. My kids are into that, yeah.
Making slime. I think that's one of the industries of the future. My taking our detergent and, oh my God, it's scary.
Yeah.
So all of our work is data-driven and based upon research, and so that's helped shape what we do. We're putting out new priority sectors just in the next month or so that we'll be working with education on in order to share with our community. So it starts with data and being able to then put this out in really impactful ways instead of those slick reports that go onto shelves and then go into the recycle bin. So we have to figure out more and more ways to get this out to the community. I'm also inspired that the conversation that we're having here and throughout is helping other organizations like the Economic Development Corporation, who now has an inclusive economic priority. And that really wasn't happening until recent times, and that helps guide those business leaders who aren't necessarily thinking about that every day, that this needs to be central to what they do. Much more to come on that because we have a long way to go. And one last thing is we're also focusing really hard on this concept of job quality. How do we help employers raise the bar so that they're gonna have the very best environment within, and then the benefits offered. That's crucially important going forward.
So my final thought would be that the work that's happening is really in your hands, right? The cultural change that's happening, the preconceived notions that we have. Who would have ever thought that a kindergartner could start to learn about the RIASEC framework and be able to express themselves and start to make decisions around their future, right? Who would have ever thought that? Even Natasha and I are VP of Education Partnerships. We went to a school in Florida talking to a counselor that's well known across the country, and the students coming in as freshmen, they just want to choose a major. Why do you have them look at careers first? Well, what's the purpose, right? We're looking to get to a future possible self. And so there's a lot of cultural change that needs to occur, and that's I think that's the hardest work that's going on with you all in this room. So thank you for all of your support too.
Final comments before we transition. Before we think, okay, Ed, go ahead.
I just want to thank Dr. Miyashiro for being probably one of the bravest people I've ever met. Superintendent, I've got to hang close with you now for over a year and a half, and I've seen the journey for all those your superintendents, and certainly our trustees make it just a little teeny bit easier. But it's a hard gig. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Before we thank the panel, there are candy bags on your tables, and the 20 most popular candies from childhood. We don't need everybody, but we need at least 10 people to choose your favorites and bring them back to your table in a bag for the activity that's going to be very interactive in the second session. We're going to transition to stage so that we can have Berlin give her TED Talk, which we had our TEDx event on Saturday. And so 2 minutes transition time, get some candy, but let's thank our amazing panel for their contribution.
So thank you for sticking with us and having some candy. Hopefully you relived a little bit of your past as you thought about the candies that you selected from many decades ago. It's my honor to present Miss Berlin Dixon, who is a 5th grader at W.D. Hall Elementary, one of our 27 schools in the Cajon Valley School District, one of 17,000 students that we are so honored to serve every single day. It's a true pleasure to have Mom, Grandma here as well, and to have her coach, Miss Victoria Jones, and also her principal, Miss Steve Lee Johnson, right? And her teacher, right? Who decided to come out today. So Berlin has been an amazing young lady in our journey, and you never know quite the impact that your work is going to have. But I think in many ways Berlin has been a testament to the work that we're trying to do, the impact that it can have on students, and that we shouldn't wait till middle school to make sure that impact happens. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Berlin. She can get started as soon as she's ready. Give me a high five, young lady. You are awesome.
What did you want to be when you grew up? It's a question that is asked of all kids starting at a young age. At first, their answers are all over the place. Some of the most common answers are a doctor, police officer, a firefighter, or maybe even a unicorn. However, as kids get older, they become a little more realistic. This is why RIASEC is so important. It can help you set goals for the future. I'm sure you're wondering, what is RIASEC? RIASEC is an acronym used to describe John Holland's theory that your choice of a career should be an expression of your personality. RIASEC has 6 personality types, which are realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. This is a key that helps organize and classify people into their career paths and college major based off their personality. Basically, RIASEC is a test that can help you learn more about yourself. The RIASEC test results can even help students in kindergarten start thinking of realistic careers they may be interested in based off their abilities, interests, and traits. With the World of Roots program, it also shows people of all ages that no matter what their interests are, that there is a career for them. It helps set long-term goals. For example, a student that wants to become a doctor can start thinking of how many years they have to be in school. We have been learning about the RIASEC key throughout the World of Work program. This program has helped me start to plan on my future and think of realistic careers I may be interested in. This is my 2nd year being part of the World of Words program and learning about RIASEC. I bet some of you think that students like myself don't think about our future, but in fact, we actually do. For example, since I was younger, I've always wanted to be a dance teacher. That's probably because I'm a dancer now and I did not think I would love doing anything else more. However, when I took the RIASEC assessment, I learned a lot about myself. After taking the quick quiz that determined my interests, I was placed in the artistic and social themes. I was not surprised with the results, but what did surprise me was later when I found out that there are many career possibilities in each category. For example, this year we learned that a news reporter is also in the artistic category. Did you know that an average salary for a news anchor is $83,300? Though, this can range from about $14,000 to $875,000, depending on the marketing size and other circumstances. With this new information and potential career path for myself, I requested to be in the NBC7 booth on our BizTown field trip so I could try it out. I loved it so much, I applied to be on our school broadcast team. Therefore, I was able to take the new information I learned about myself and apply it to the real-world experience. In the World of Words program, this is known as working through the 4 levels of experiences. These experiences are known as exploration, simulation, media pro, and practice. Maybe you're wondering, why is this important and how can this help me? Well, are you stuck in a job you're not interested in? Do you know someone in college that seems lost and always changing the major? This is why RIASEC in the World of Words program is so important. There are so many careers out there, but we usually only talk about a few of them. Our district's Innovation Engagement Officer, Ed Hidalgo, said it best. We want every child to find their place in the world, and in order to do that, we need to help them understand their strengths, their interests, and their values. With the World of Words program, students like myself will eventually learn a minimum of 54 career possibilities by the time we move on to high school. This will help inspire the future workforce because we have a better understanding of what we're learning in the classroom and how it relates to our future. Hopefully, giving every child the career path of their choice by the time we graduate from high school. As you can see, RIASEC has helped guide me and open my eyes to new career possibilities, and I think it will do the same for you. I encourage everyone to keep an open mind and take the RIASEC assessment. You never know, you might learn something new about yourself.
Way to go. Way to go.
Good morning. My name is Karen Minshew. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services in Cajon Valley. A wise leader once told me, always follow a bad act, and today I don't get to. You might be wondering about the candies. So the candies are a comparison to your interests. How many of you, when you went up to look at those candies, found a candy you loved in your childhood and you picked it up today, you still like it? All right. I am a huge Good and Plenty fan. I stick by it. I take a lot of heat. People look at me funny. That's the worst candy ever. I still love Good and Plenty's. How many of you found a candy up there from your childhood or when you were younger that you don't want to eat it anymore at all? You would never put that in your mouth again, right? So the analogy is that these are our interests change, our tastes change. And today we are going to look at and give you some experiences about our World of Work program and specifically your interests in the RIASEC. So I'm going to turn it over to Ed. We're going to do an activity around the RIASEC.
Thank you very much, and thanks for hanging out. I know it's hard to follow Berlin. Thank you, Karen. Great to have you here today. Hopefully we're going to introduce you to some new things. If I have some teachers, some Cajon Valley folks, please help out our new friends who are maybe learning about their interests. This is an opportunity for us to really unpack, and you heard this from our panel today. I'm just curious, how many of you are familiar with the Holland framework right now, the RIASEC? Okay, all right, excellent, excellent. So we are going to have the opportunity to self-report our interest themes this morning. I think it's still morning, right? And we're going to move quickly, and we're a lot of folks, and it's a kind of a tight room, so it's going to be a little bit challenging. But so you know just a little bit about Holland and this through line for the World of Work initiative, we ground in interests. And if you haven't heard of Holland, it's the most researched of all vocational typologies. And what we know about interests is that they had the highest correlation to career performance, success, and income of any of the personality measures. There's decades of research and meta-research around interests, and this is why we ground in interests. We talk about strengths, and we talk about workplace values, but there's no correlation between those elements and career. And so that's why we focus on Holland, and we focus on interests. It's the best vocational typology to use for that purpose. And our students, and you can ask Ms. Thomas and Ms. Weinstein here, or many of the other teachers, they're learning it in kindergarten. And when we didn't give it to transitional kindergarten, they got really mad. So we had to give it to TK too. So students can do this work. So in the middle of your tables, all of you will want to reach in and grab the flyer that we provided. And you're going to have the opportunity to get out of your seats. And this is what we're going to do. I'm not sure quite how. You're going to be bumping into each other, making friends. But here's the opportunity in this moment. As you see the RIASEC themes, we want you to understand that each theme stands for a different interest category. And so if you flip over to the page that looks like this, You're going to see each of the RIASEC theme areas identified in the way that we've created in the Cajon Valley School District. Please know that realistic stands for hands-on doing. Investigative is all about using math and science to solve problems. Artistic is all about creative self-expression. It could certainly link back to the fine arts. Social is your helpers, commonly found in nursing and teaching professions. Enterprising E is all about public speaking, persuasion, sales, politics. And conventional, just like my little daughter at 9 years of age, who leads with conventional C, she loves to organize the heck out of everything. So your opportunity now is going to be to do a gallery walk at the posters that you see around the room. And we're going to ask you to look at the words, the experiences, the people in each of the posters that you see. There's one for each of the RIASEC theme areas. And we're going to ask you to claim your top 2 or 3 themes. Most adults, and really most children from what we were finding, will claim a combination of 2 or 3 themes. Once you claim your themes, then come on back and sit down, maybe 2 to 5 minutes. You think that's possible? We'll see, probably not, but get up and walk around. And we have some of our amazing team members, Mr. Mark in the back, who's holding one of the signs. We'll move one of the signs over. Why don't we move this one? Whoops. The artistic. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Well done. There we go. There you go. All right. Fun. Good to see you. And then next, you're going to only because I worked at Cajon. I know, right? We still need math. I just hate it. San Diego. Yeah, you want to come see our kids? Yes, please. I'd love for you to come see our kids. Tomorrow? I don't know. I'll be here tomorrow. All right, everyone. Couple more minutes, or I'll do the clap thing again. Maybe I should do the clap thing. Does it work for the kids? Should I do the clap thing? What's that? If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. That was so sad. Come on, you would make it for a second. I need you to do that for me. I don't have that special talent. I already shared that. I always shared that. All right, everyone. You'll have moments to share at the end. We want you to complete your experience. First of all, we should thank the University of Buffalo for these beautiful RSA Animate videos. They are available for free on YouTube currently. And yeah, the first time we ever used them with first graders, there's a beautiful voiceover that isn't age appropriate for the younger grades, but when you place it on mute and you slow the speed down by 50% and you bring students together and say, as soon as you recognize something, yell it out as loud as you can. There's a lot of excitement that happens in that moment, and then at the end of that experience, students very clearly can differentiate their interests. So today what we were doing is just one of those types of exercises that we do. Today was a gallery rock. And again, most people are a combination of 2 or 3 themes. So I'm wondering, if you could only claim one theme, how many of you would claim realistic as your top theme? Raise your hand. Realistic. How many of you claimed realistic? Thank you, Mark Regals, master mechanic. Yes. Okay. How many of you would claim investigative? Fine. How many of you would claim artistic as a top theme? Okay. Social? Wow, okay. Enterprising and conventional. Fantastic, that's super. In our practice, we use a lot of self-reporting. You heard Chris Mackey, the GM from Myers-Briggs Company, speaking about assessments, and we do start using valid, reliable, and empirically based assessments starting in 6th grade. For the adults right away, the parents and teachers right away. But for the early grades, our students are self-reporting. And frankly, all throughout their journey, I believe they should be self-reporting so we can evaluate for congruency across both the science and the self-report. Career development is a human process. It requires a conversation, and it's something that happens across the lifespan. We can't just slide a test across the table, put a child on a software platform, and expect the answer to be baked, right? So it really does require a conversation. So you've discovered your interests. Congratulations. Now, Ms. Minshew is going to share a little bit further about our exercise. Well done.
I'm going to need that clicker, I think, too.
You want to take it? Take it.
So what you just experienced is part of the career development in our modern curriculum. And you're going to do something with, don't lose it, because you're going to do something with it a little bit later. Conversations happened all the time about, yes, career, if you're in high schools, the CTC pathways. Chris talked about these processes, these procedures to careers, yes. And the panel alluded to this today. A lot of people, someone stopped me yesterday during our tours and said, you know, we're doing careers, we get that, but our kids don't have the soft skills. And so you can say soft skills, you can say behavior problems in school, you can say kids don't have context for working hard or what it takes to work, and who's showing them these things. So we want to share a little bit more about our social emotional learning curriculum that goes, and it is part of our modern curriculum that goes right in with career development. So I'm going to take you through an exercise. This is our curriculum. It's our middle school SEL, and this one is about flexible thinking. So what does that mean and how does that help? We're going to talk about problems because everybody experiences problems each day. And this is what a lesson looks like. So, problems. We all face obstacles in work, in life. If you're a student, whether you say so or not, you're probably facing a lot of problems just sitting in your seat, whether we understand them or not. Problems are not all the same size. Our obstacles can be very small, they can be very large, and how we think about them, how we react to them, affects our personal well-being. It affects and impacts those around us. You probably have met some students, you might have some family members, you might have some coworkers sometime in your career where every problem seems like a fire. It is a level 10, we've got to do something, lots of emotion. That impacts all the humans around you. So in this lesson in flexible thinking, students learn how to scale a problem. And in doing that, you start learning not all problems are huge or problems that I can't overcome. You find out, you know what, I can handle this, and it starts to build self-confidence. So I'm just trying to give you the background for this. So we, in this lesson, in flexible thinking, we actually give students vocabulary and we name problems. So problems can be a glitch. That's something that's frustrating, but I can handle it on my own. I can probably fix this problem on my own. Next is a challenge. It's going to be a little harder. I'm going to either have to reach out for a different tool to try to solve this problem, or I'm going to need another person to help me overcome this. And a threat, a true threat, is something that involves your safety or significantly is going to affect your well-being. And those don't happen very often. But think about how humans react that way in lots of situations. Okay, we're going to put you to the test. I had a coffee theme, but David switched it up with candy, so we're going to stick with a candy theme. All right. We're going to run through 3 scenarios. Here's your scenario. It's 3 o'clock. You haven't eaten since 11. You're hungry. You're going to be working late. You go to the vending machine. You put in your $1. You press C9, and here's where you are. All right. Is this a glitch, challenge, or threat? In MTSS, that is a Tier 2 intervention for Naomi. All right, that is a glitch. What can you do to fix this? Shake the machine. In fact, there's YouTube videos on how to hack a lot of vending machines. I did learn that in the research. You can put more money in, you can shake that machine. All right, next scenario. It's April 21st. You thought you were a good mom. The Easter Bunny went through and did all their work the night before, and no one told someone that one was hidden in the oven. And now you have to come up with another basket in the morning. What would you classify that as? Challenge? Yeah, I'm going to have to figure out a basket. The candy's probably ruined. So that one's a challenge. All right. Have you ever heard of this, the Chubby Bunny Challenge? Because David changed this to candy, I learned so much about candy. I did not know this. I guess there's a challenge and you put a marshmallow in your mouth every time you say the word Chubby Bunny, and I guess, okay. It was tough coming up with a threat for candy. I also Googled the #1 candy that you may choke on is marshmallow. So we would classify this as threat. If you were choking, you would absolutely couldn't solve this problem by yourself. You might need a skilled human to help you with the Heimlich maneuver. You might need a chair to Heimlich yourself. So threat with candy. All right, we are going to take your knowledge now of glitch, challenge, and threat, and Ed is going to walk us through your next career.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Nice to meet you. All right, so we're going to combine our interests with the exploration of careers. And when I think of career assessments, and we've been talking a little bit about career assessments, I think we have good, which is the assessment that comes through the ONET. And I'm sharing some of this because I'm always surprised when I meet with either counselors or educators. It's their first time ever hearing about the ONET. So I'd like for you to leave today knowing what the ONET is, because it's the government database of jobs. It's where the Bureau of Labor Statistics source the information. 2,000 plus careers that are on the ONET are classified by Holland, by the RIASEC framework. So incredibly practical. And I would say that their assessment is good because it's valid, but it's not reliable or empirically based. So it's good. It's a good place to start. It's free. You can hop in. It's very easy. And we're going to go there in just a little bit. I hope all of you have your mobile devices. I also want to share Better is the tool that the Workforce Partnership is using. It's called Career Coach. It is also free. I don't know if it's valid or reliable or empirically based because I can't get the data, or I haven't seen the white paper on it, which are the types of things that I ask annoyingly to people who put things like this together. But in my experience in using it, which it does result in a RIASEC themed response, what I do like is that it does tie back to priority sector careers here in our region. So if career development is a human process, we can still have a conversation. We can look at self-reported interest themes, look at the science, and then have a conversation. So we're not too concerned that someone's going to go off the rails. When I do talk about BEST, I do talk about the Vita Novice platform, which is what Mr. Mackey was talking about. I consider it best, again, because it's valid, reliable, and empirically based. So what I want to invite you to do is, now that you know a little bit about the backstory on assessments, what's free, what's available, what I consider best through my work, is I want to invite you to visit the ONET on your mobile devices, maybe your laptop or your iPad. You have it with you. It'll be part of this exercise. I want you to leave with an actual skill and knowledge to be able to, maybe there's someone at home that wants to have a conversation about careers later today, tonight, maybe over the weekend. And I want you to see how very specifically you can begin to search careers based on your interests. And I don't know that I have a laser pointer here. Maybe I do. That's definitely the wrong slide button. What we're going to do is, now that you've identified your interests, maybe it's social, enterprising, artistic, maybe it's realistic, investigative, and conventional, we're going to select a career, a job of interest that you might have that aligns to the interests that you've selected. Has everyone found the ONET on their mobile device? Hopefully you have. Don't go to the top right, to the occupational search. I want you to take you to another place. I wish I had a laser. I don't have a laser. At the bottom where you see the advanced search, ladies and gentlemen, advanced search, you can see it here. Hopefully you can get there on your mobile device. You can actually select a career by interest, a job by interest. And it is that place where you'll be able to select what jobs are available based on my social theme. Because students are going to come to you and say, well, I have social, I have investigate, whatever it is. You should read about the theory too, because there's a whole theory around the consistency and themes that are adjacent to each other on the framework. Although new research is starting to blow up some of that research and looking at themes across the hexagon, which Holland was always against You know, that really you need to have congruency in order for you to be very clear in your interests and for your interests to be valid and for there to be person, environment, and fit. I know I'm taking you in the weeds right now, sorry. But that your themes really need to be adjacent to each other on the hexagon. But some of the newest research is showing that themes across the hexagon can be absolutely valid. And there's some more research that's really articulating some really cool things about the combination of themes. So I wouldn't get too stuck on the adjacency. But if you go to the advanced search, again, you search under interests, you plug in the 2 or 3 themes that you've identified through this simple self-reporting activity, you're going to find a page that looks like this one. I know, you said, well, why didn't you show me that earlier? I wanted you to work hard. But this is the screen that I was just articulating about. You can actually move your interests across your preferred, your second preferred, and your third preferred. And then you're going to see a list of jobs that align to that career. Typically, you'll have a sequencing of themes based on what you've inputted, but sometimes they'll be swapped. And if you look at the job zone, people are always questioning what the job zone is. I'm sure this group will be able to get it just by looking through. But the job zone correlates specifically to the level of education that's required in order to obtain that job. So as you move from number 1 job zone to number 5 job zone, there's more education that's required. I'm sorry, it's a static page. I couldn't run the computer today, or I would have shown you in a different format. We had to work with static pages. So my challenge to you right now is, based on, again, what you've self-reported as your interest themes, go ahead and select a job of interest from the ONET. And the people at the ONET would be so happy to know that we're doing this work. Phil Lewis and the whole team there, they would love to know that this is happening. People rip off the ONET's work all the time, by the way. They pull out an API of the ONET and they'll put it into their system and they'll call it their own because the ONET does not demand a citation back to the ONET. Where I talked about the correlation of interest to career satisfaction, performance, and income, the research comes from James Rounds out of the University of Illinois. And he's the one who's been creating quite a few of the assessments that you'll find on the ONET. So he's one of the top researchers in interest globally. So take a few minutes, select your job, and then we're going to go to the next stage of applying our glitch, challenge, and threat, which you've already read ahead anyways, right? You know what's coming. But take a moment. Anyone struggling with the ONET? Need some help? Have a question? I do. Yeah, if you have the laser. I pushed the button. Oh, you do? Mine's yeah. I just pulled it out. Thank you. Are we on? Are we getting on? Good? Okay. Okay. You get in there? Okay, cool. Excellent. All right, looks like everyone's getting on. Good job. You hopping in there? First time? There you go. Okay. Folks are doing. That's okay. Don't worry. It's fine. Okay. All right, since most of you have now identified, thank you. Looks like most of you have identified and been successful in getting to your into that job of interest. And by the way, we've given you some decals if you want to claim your RIASEC themes with your decals. Go for it. I know I get a lot of interest from the students. They're like, "Where'd you get that phone case with the RIASEC on the back?" Might be an enterprising idea for one of you out there. Here's what we want you to do. And you can see it written here right now. As you think about what Karen shared with us about the concept of a setback, think of yourself as a high school senior thinking about that job of the future. right? You've already claimed. Think of yourself as a high school senior, and you've just selected that job of interest from the ONET. What might be a glitch, challenge, or threat to actually achieving that job, to actually getting there, to making it to that place from where you are today to where you want to go? And is it that potential setback or that challenge? Is it a challenge? What might be a challenge? What might be a glitch? Or what might be a threat? And as you think through that, then we'll share out. Kind of deep thoughts as you're thinking about who am I and who do I want to become, even at this age.
Okay, any glitches? Anybody think of a glitch for a high school senior? The job you chose on the ONET, what would be a glitch? It's frustrating, but you're going to work through it and pursue this job. Okay, internet down. Application process is too long. And think about different types of students. A home where someone can support that effort. A home where may not have access to a computer, internet, or a parent that can help me with the application. What else? Glitches.
Maybe a requirement for a certain world language requirement to get into college. Something you have to work through in order to apply to
And so before, as you're looking at it, you're in high school, it's before your senior year, you have to navigate those things. Counselor helps you. Maybe you have a counselor that didn't reach out to you for that guidance. You got to work. That's a glitch. Any other glitches that students might face? All right, what would be a challenge? You cannot handle this probably on your own. You need some tools. You need someone to help you. What might someone face for that career? Yes?
Under the abilities, it lists information about reading comprehension.
So how do you get help with that?
Maybe you go back to your counselor.
And seek your own support, self-advocate. Thank you.
I have to take care of I have to help at home with financially, so I have to work, and that's going to slow down my time to my degree.
You're going to need help. So what could a student do?
What I did is found a flex job that let me
A flex job.
Go to work 25 hours.
That's awesome. Awesome. Other challenges? Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know anybody that does that job. I like it. I've done my RIASEC. I see it on the ONET, but I don't know that I am enough for that job. I connect. I have enough value. Who are these people? It's like a foreign world to me.
The oral expression, whether it be just your personality or speaking different language, you're in the type of environment where you don't have people around you to show that there are people like you in that situation that can be a challenge.
Challenge and makes me think of NEPRIS right away. Yes.
Technology skills, if you don't have training on them, take an online training program or something in the library.
Prerequisites, tech skills. Thank you. I'm sorry, what? My grades aren't good. Grades, GPA. Challenge, I'm looking at it, I don't know, can I do this? Where do I go for support? Oh. I didn't know I had to round out all my experiences going through school. I didn't know that. I didn't know the plan. What would be a personal challenge, probably more individual-based? A learning disability. Maybe it was unidentified. Maybe you've had supports. Maybe you never know. Maybe you did find out you were dyslexic and going through a process, and now what do you do? What would be, oh, I'm sorry, thank you. I think it goes to both the comments. If you've never seen this done and you're like, this is me, but no one else has done it. Is this really me? It's confidence, it's can I do this? I think that almost balances between challenge and threat, inner, like our, our own inner speak of what we're saying to ourselves, possibly in students. That's where I think the SEL piece is really important because we're developing over time.
Just the opposite as well. This is the expectation of the culture or my family. That's a challenge to get out of that expectation.
That would be, I love that. Both sides. Anything else? Yes. Challenge. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And how is higher ed responding to that now? We can see it here at ASU. How we're flexing schedules, work and higher ed to meet those challenges. Okay, so all of this impact on students. World of work, career, you heard the panel, you had an experience in the RIASEC, you got to examine some of your interests, you got to go back and think about how your interests have changed over time. We've talked about developing the human and impact to others. What's this impact on students? You've heard all this today. What does this mean? How does this impact what we do in our buildings and where we go back to after here? Thank you.
I think it's really empowering students. The confidence level of students to have their own agency, to make purposeful decisions about what it is they're pursuing and why. I think it's really powerful.
Thank you.
I really like that it's also visualizing the process of how to get here and what's the path to actually do it. So it's not just kind of like getting in the career, kind of floating into different things kind of aimlessly, but rather you understand that you can identify what you might be interested in and what are steps that you can actually take to it.
Right, I like the word floating. That's what it feels like a lot of times.
I love the parent connection that you guys are making in terms of getting parents to understand what they're interested in and where their path started. Because what we find sometimes in our district is kids are ready for all of this, but the parents aren't.
Mm-hmm.
So when they go home, there's this obstacle when they get home that they can't communicate it to their parents because those expectations haven't changed yet.
Two things happened with parents. We had our TEDx El Cajon event with our students, and we turned our gym. We used to have vendors come in, but we made it the World of Work gym, so there was experiences. And students would come up, and our dynamic facilitators came up with an idea of ping pong balls. So your RIASEC, and then you'd vote, and it would go into a cylinder, and we could see kind of the interest. Students walked up, and I just say good morning. We were at the welcome table, and I said, "Do you know your RIASEC?" And she goes, "Yes, I'm an A, an I, and an S." And this mother looks at her daughter, and she goes, and she's telling me all about her RIASEC, and the mother goes, "I have no idea what she's talking about." The little girl turns around and tells her. One boy came up, he rode probably 3-4 miles on a skateboard, and he got there by himself, and he was excited. And I said, "Do you know your RIASEC?" And he gave me his letters, and he goes, "But I really want to be E." And I go, "Why?" And he goes, "I want to own my own business. I want to be a chef, but I want to own my own business." So parents' exposure to this, it was amazing. Secondly, Mike Serbin's our family and community engagement officer. We thought the dream when we thought of this world of work and all this was about parents, getting our parents to work that aren't working or that are in the wrong careers. And if you think of doing parent university, parent workshops, we brought in the local employment agency, and they came over, and 4 parents signed up on a path to go, like just through the schools, just through a family engagement, to start a path of employment for themselves. And that's really what we want as well. So, anything else before we close out? Yes? Yes, thank you. Mhm.
It does mean, however, that a student would be collecting a body of evidence outside of school that would represent what their learning is back in school. So it's not about so much about what you're learning in the classroom setting, but what you're learning outside that setting that provides the evidence you need to be able to pass that English class.
It does. It is amazing what's happened between the personal connections in World of Work with community, just local business and beyond with these connections for students. And I mean, El Cajon feels different to me now because of these programs, because it's connecting careers and education.
I think it takes the education experience from a place of accountability to a place of possibility for our students and even for our teachers.
That's awesome. One last parent comment I had. Sometimes I'm the person you come to when you have a complaint in the district, but I like it. It's my job. It's my jam. And a parent came in and she was very concerned. She had a concern at a site, and she was shared that with me. And she goes, "I just want to tell you, I love this World of Work program." And I said, "Well, thank you. It's awesome." And she goes, "I volunteer 3 times a week, and for the first time, my daughter's not bullied." And I looked, and I've never thought of World of Work. I thought of social emotional like we shared today. But she said, "My daughter's conventional, and for the first time, other students see her with a strength and that it's a skill, and it's different than their skill, but they need her for work." And she's not looked at, she said, from kinder, first grade, second grade, she was looked at as a nerd, as an outsider, and bullied by other kids. And now they see her value. And I was sharing it with Ed the other day. I had never thought of the implications of how students see each other that way. But that was another parent example. Thank you for joining us today. Very